So Patrick, this section talks about UBA and PAM, right? What's your take on user behavior analytics, and what is the need and how does it help?
Yeah, I just touched on it a little bit. So user behavior analysis works on two dimensions. One is to prevent an insider threat and also to prevent an threat from the outside. Now, quite a few of these attacks that we have learned. I mean, I have read through the case materials where the attacker has been sitting inside the network for a long time. Okay. Now, when the attacker, but the problem is, if the attacker will always make a mistake because they are not a regular user on the network. So when you know how your users are behaving, right? You know, let's say this is a team that is doing banking, cash transactions, right? So a cash transaction team will always work in a similar way. They will receive the transaction, they will check it, they will do this, they will do that. So the behavior is through a particular pattern. Now, as I said, the most attacked industry is the banking industry, and the cash part of it is where you will get attacked. Now, if the attacker comes in and there is a change in the way the behavior is, the system will shut it down. The system won't allow the attacker to go any further. So this is where user behavior analysis or analytics become very, very important. Now, on the other side, I said insider threat as well. Now, let's say somebody, we have seen frauds, quite a few frauds that have happened, right? The Nirav Modi case is one such fraud, where internally the guys were playing the system, right? Now, we know that, internally a person, an employee or an employee in a particular role has to do this kind of work, right? And if there is a change in the pattern, then the system can identify it and say, okay, there is something wrong, right? And so this can also help in avoiding insider threat as well. So that is where user behavior analysis becomes very important.
Absolutely. Now, privilege access management, right? It's something that goes hand in hand with UBA. Now, how critical do you think it is to employ PAM solutions for an organization?
Okay, so I'll give you a very simple example, right? Let's say you are the administrator of a building, and you have the keys to the building. You can open any room in that building, right? And you can do whatever you can go into the room and do whatever you want. Okay. Now that is the analogy of the administrators in the IT world, right? People with the admin access. They have the key. They have the key to get into any database or any system or any server or any firewall. So, I mean, it may not be the same person doing all of that. Now, a firewall admin will be different from a database admin. A database admin will be different from a cloud DevOps admin, right? So, but they all have elevated access. Okay. Now, we were talking about user behavior analysis in the previous question. Now, people with admin access also have a set pattern on which they work, right? But because of their elevated access, and these guys are technical experts, they can do a lot of things. They can multitask, right? I go back to my days as a systems engineer. Yeah, we used to multitask. We used to do a lot of things. And today, with all the advancement in technology, yeah, you can multitask. You can do so many things at the same time. I mean, you can do a mistake on purpose, or inadvertently you can commit a mistake. An administrator can. I still remember the days when days of DOS, where we used to copy from. So the copy command has to be typed: copy this file from this location to this location. Now let's say you switch the destination and source, right? the wrong file will be copied from the wrong destination to the wrong or the other way around, right? So mistakes can happen. We are all human, right? So administrators have to be monitored. Now that is what PAM brings into. Every session is monitored. Every session is recorded, so that tomorrow, if there is a conflict, if there is a fraud, or if there is something that had happened, we can always go back and check what the administrator was doing. Okay. Now, privilege access management can be restricted into a lot of areas. Now, for example, without a change request, without an approved change request, an admin cannot log in. you can restrict that. Without an incident number, you cannot log in. You can restrict that. If a change time is, let's say the change time was only an hour, and the admin is working past that, you can cut the session, because it was just an hour long change. If he's still sitting there, he or she, then could be a problem, right? So you cut off the access. So these are some small simple examples I'm giving you how privilege access management or PAM can be utilized to secure your environment.
True. Now, there's a host of IT standards, like the PCI DSS, the HIPAA, ISO 27001, and so many GDPR regulations and all of that. Of course, to protect data. But why is so much weightage given on these standards?
See, it's all about, ISO has been a standard for manufacturing and for various industries. And in the year 2013, they released the ISO 27001 standard. So that was probably one of the first standards that was adopted in terms of information security. At the same time, the National Institute of Standards and Technology from the United States, the NIST framework, also came for the cybersecurity. They came up with a 6-point plan, which is really good. I won't go into the details of that. And if you form your cybersecurity framework using the NIST framework, you will have very little chances of missing anything out. So basically, what I first told you, right? Get a complete control of your environment, right?
Know your jewels.
Yes, the crown jewels, everything. So when it's a standard, okay, this is how we do it. This is a standard we practice. Then something missing out is, can be prevented. Okay, so that is where the standards come in. PCI DSS, payment card industry data security standard. When you are paying using a card, right, a debit card or a credit card, then there has to be certain standards to make sure your transactions are flowing the way it has to flow. It shouldn't touch the merchant network, right? Now, a point of sale device, you go to the mall, you finish your shopping, you come back, you're paying at the counter, you swipe your card. Nowadays, you don't swipe, you just insert the card or you tap the card, right? You tap the card, and the point of sale device should not send the transaction back into the store network. It should send the transaction directly to the bank. So that's a standard. The standard has to be, properly maintained and followed. If we have a violation there, somebody else can tap that and take the payment card information, and your credit card may be compromised. We don't want a situation like that. That's why we want that standards, right? HIPAA is for hospitals, for healthcare. Healthcare, you can't play with a person's life. You need a standard, isn't it? So that is where all these standards become of top priority, I would say.
Now, from what you explained, this also sounds like a lot of compliance work. Right? Do you think that is another area of growth?
Yeah, it is. So in the banks, compliance is a separate department, right? So you have regulatory bodies like the Reserve Bank of India for India, right? You have the Prudential Bank in the UK. You have the Federal Reserves in the US. These are the central banks. Okay, so these are the regulatory bodies that tell you this is how you should behave as a bank. This is how you should do things. This is how you should behave. This is how you should work. You follow that. If you don't follow that, you violate, your banking license can be cancelled. It can go to that extreme, right? Similarly, it becomes important for us to also, any industry, right? Universities, they have a standard to follow. You have to comply, right? I was talking about payment card industry. You have a standard to follow. You have to comply, right? So every industry, not all industries have regulatory bodies, right? Insurance industry has one. Banking industry has one, the medical industry has one, but not all industries have one. So if there is no regulatory body that is governing your industry, it is better that you, as the CISO, create that compliance within your practice so that you are compliant with these industry standards and you save yourself and the organization you are protecting. That is where compliance comes into the picture.
Interesting. So yes, we're convinced that it is, of course, important. They look intimidating. That's what made me put this question in the first place. But yes,
right. As we speak, interestingly, since you brought that up, this is breaking news. ISO has also come up with a new set of standards. What used to be hundreds of controls is now condensed down to a few controls. We are still waiting for the details to come out, but ISO 27002 2022 is a new standard that was very recently released, and it is going to be taking the world by storm, because it's going to be easy to keep up with the controls rather than the hundreds of controls we used to keep up. So yeah, the compliance industry is also slowly evolving. I mean, it's all a process, right? It's all an evolution.
True.
And as we all evolve, as the industries evolve, the compliance, the standards are also evolving. So eventually, it will become a little bit more easier. Yeah, you are right. They are intimidating, but the standards organizations are also working to make it easy for us as well.
Absolutely. Well, Patrick, once again, thank you so much for sharing your views on UBA and PAM.